Mr. Stepp, would you give us your full name and DOC number, please?
Shawn D, Stepp, 124986.
Thank you, Mr. Stepp. Mr. Stepp, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and we're going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, those persons who wish to speak will have an opportunity to say whatever they'd like to say to the board. Those persons are Mr. Tyrone Smith with First 72 Plus, Anthony Hingle, who is a friend of yours, Grace Bronson, who is your attorney, and Scotty Hendricks, who is your brother. Not speaking, but here at headquarters to show support is Caroline Durham, Josie Natowitz, Hannah Gradell, and Anisha Schulte. After we have a hearing, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say. Then your lawyer will close out, and then the board would vote. Do you understand our procedure, sir?
Yes, sir.
Ms. Bronson, would you please make an appearance for the record?
Yes, good morning, board. Great to see you all this morning. Grace Bronson representing Shawn Stepp this morning.
Thank you very much. This is the matter of Shawn D. Stepp, DOC number 124986. His date of birth is August the 17th of 1970. He's a second-class offender. He has a parole eligibility date of August the 1st of 2021, an adjusted good time date of February the 28th of 2097, full term date of February the 19th of 2098. He is currently serving an 80-year, 3-month, and 1-day sentence on the charges of 2 counts of armed robbery, an account of armed robbery where he has been adjudicated as a habitual offender. Those sentencings having been issued on June the 28th of 2018. Mr. Stepp, does that information sound correct to you?
No, sir. The situation is I have a 104-year sentence, sir, a 99-year sentence, in tandem with a 5-year parole. It wouldn't be a violation, but it was good time supervision that I was currently serving on my first incarceration. In 2017, I was granted parole by this board. I am now back before this board due to technical violations of my parole condition, and that occurred in 2018, sir.
Okay, so what is it that you dispute in what I basically said? And I'm having trouble hearing. Perhaps we can let the lawyer clear up any legal issues that we have. Ms. Bronson, why don't you go ahead and explain what Mr. Stepp is saying here?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to ask that if there were some discrepancies, there is some confusing procedural issues. Mr. Stepp was sentenced as a habitual offender to 99 years plus a prior 10-year conviction when he was 18. So he was convicted and has a 103-year sentence. He served 30 years in Angola. He was paroled in 2017 and was released to a fictitious reentry program, was released to the streets and was checking in with his parole officer, but violated the conditions of his parole, which we will go more into in this hearing, I'm sure, and can clarify anything else at the end. But when he was not actually, did not have a revocation hearing. So he was sent back to DOC custody and did not have a parole eligibility date of 2021 until there was some dispute in the court system in the 19th JDC, which has not been ruled on. And I actually called Commissioner Kimball's court section this morning, and she's waiting to see what this board does. And so his legal position is based on a parole violation that was a technical violation. And then he is before you all today after that petition was filed pro se by himself in the 19th JDC, and his rap sheet now reflects a parole eligibility date of 2021, but that changed in August 8th of this year. to reflect that parole eligibility date. So this is a confusing procedural case, and I can explain anything else that you all have questions about.
From my perspective, today is a parole hearing. We're going to have
Yes,
a
sir.
parole hearing to
Yep.
make a determination. There's some question perhaps as to how many years he's got left to serve. I understand that, and I'll accept your explanation for that. So we'll just proceed according to us having the parole hearing today.
Yes, sir.
The work release he was sent to, or the program he was sent to, what was he supposed to get at that program?
So he was revoked to the work release, or not revoked. He was pled guilty to the technical violations, and he was sent to work release. At that point, he had been there for approximately 10 weeks and was working, and he was subject to periodic urinalysis, which he had passed all of those, and then he failed one of them when it came back as a positive THC urinalysis, and at that time they then removed him from work release. At that time, procedurally, he would have had some type of hearing, a revocation hearing, to contest that THC, and it was a false positive. There was never a hearing on that, which was part of the petition that was filed into the 19th JDC with those allegations, and so he never actually was found guilty. He was just remanded back into DOC custody and has served 5 years since that time.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Mr. Stepp, your case has been assigned to Ms. Pearl Wise. She will begin our interview process. Would you please answer any questions she might have?
Yes, sir.
All right. Good morning, Mr. Stepp.
Top of the day, ma'am.
I like that. Top of the day. Now, in looking at you, going back to your history, the transfer screen shows that you were in a treatment program, West Baton Rouge contract. Tell me about that treatment program. Look like from 8/6 of 18 to 10/31 of 18.
Yes, ma'am. It was just, I was simply told that because I did not have housing and I did not have employment, that I would be placed in the work release program for a period not to exceed 6 months, and that this program would allow me to get my money together and things of that nature, so that I could afford to be housed and employed gainfully in the state of Louisiana. And that was the conditions of that.
Now, are you answering my question about the August 18 to October 18 treatment program in West Baton Rouge? Are you answering that question?
Yes, ma'am. That's what it was. That's all it was. It was a work release program.
Oh, it was a work release program. It's showing treatment program. That's why.
No, ma'am.
Okay. And your record also show so you got paroled in I'm showing you got paroled 3/13 of 2017. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am, that is correct.
Okay, and then you absconded in October of 17. And they picked you up in Florida, right?
Yes, ma'am.
In October of 7. Just yes or no? Just yes or no?
Yes, ma'am. You could use that language.
But you got enough confusion, so I just wanted to make sure that the records are. I'm understanding the records as they are. And so when you were returned, when you were extradited back, right? DOC brought you back.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and then you were put into the facility in West Baton Rouge.
Work release, yes, ma'am.
When you put into work release. But there was your statement is there was never a hearing, but those are the other factors, some of the violations that have occurred.
Yes, ma'am. I was for the absconding or whatever. The parole officers that in East Baton Rouge were aware of the circumstances and situation that I had been originally released into homelessness, and therefore they knew that I had just came out of a very serious medical condition where I had just had a double aneurysm, and inadvertently found myself in Florida shortly thereafter. I enlightened my parole officer where I was at the time that happened. So when I got back to Louisiana, they knew that there was no criminal intent on my part. I had been in contact with my parole officer while I was in Florida, and they then placed me in the work release facility because I did not have anywhere in Louisiana to live or to work.
Okay, I got you now. I got it now. I'm picking up what you're putting down now. I got it. I'm up to speed now. So let's talk about what you've been doing since you've been incarcerated.
Yes,
How
ma'am.
you been doing? Let's go ahead and talk about your write-ups first. How you been doing in terms of write-ups?
Well, truthfully, ma'am, when I first got back into Department of Corrections, when I got to Angola, I found myself reliving the worst nightmare I could possibly have.
I need you to kind of project your voice because for some reason
We're having
mic
some
is
real
not here. So I
difficulty.
need you to just go ahead. Yeah, just
Maybe
really
you can pull that microphone closer to you.
and really project your voice. It's not time to whisper.
Yes, ma'am. I have a deep voice, but I talk low. Give me for that. Can you
Go
hear me
ahead
better?
and talk loud right now because the mic is not helping you.
Yes, ma'am. When I got back to Angola, I was living a nightmare in real time. And unfortunately, I compounded not only the problems of violating the conditions of my parole, but I ended up finding myself drinking homebrew, and I ended up with 3 intoxications in a very short period of time. I found myself in the dungeon for the 3rd time for this charge, and ultimately I had to reach way down deep inside of myself, cry out to God, and realize that this isn't the person I wanted to be. So when I got out of the dungeon, I began to seek support from the brothers that I've been incarcerated with that I knew would support me and help me, strengthen me to get through this. Shortly thereafter, I was sent to Elaine Hunt, and I voluntarily entered into the RDAT program, where I rediscovered the essential techniques that have always allowed me not to be a victim of my own demise, but an overcomer of every situation. I began to practice my prayers and meditations and journalistic writing. It's been very therapeutic for me over the years. I was able to garner the group therapy and personal mentorship from brothers. And then moving forward since then, I'm certain it would probably be a part of my record, Beauty to Enlighten You. I've been able to now be, once again, a mentor and a brother, those other guys that I'm incarcerated with who are suffering from depression or addictions of things of that nature. I come from a family of substance abusers. So I realized that this addiction or the potential to be an addict is something that will always hinder me. But I also know that I'm in control of that. And I know that it's a lifelong journey. And the depression and the way I really failed myself, failed state of Louisiana.
Okay, let me stop you there. Okay, let me stop you there. So you completed RDAP? You graduated RDAP?
Yeah, well, I didn't actually get to attend the graduation ceremony. I was sitting here, but yes, ma'am, I completed the course.
But you completed it, yeah. It's all about the program, and you know that. It's all about the program. So you did complete it. You have that skill set. You have that knowledge now.
Yes, ma'am.
You've been, since 2019, you've been getting a write-up every year.
I haven't the last year, by the grace of God.
Yeah, well, you right. Your last one, well, I don't know, well, July of 23 made a year. So you're just starting another year. Your last write-up was July 22.
Yes, ma'am. That would have been for having my shirt off at a very inopportune time. That was a Rule
So
5.
Well, they called it was aggravated disobedience.
Yes, ma'am. I had my shirt off. I had just come in from work. I went to throw my laundry away, and I took my shirt off. I spilled something, and I went to go grab a mop, and the lady saw me with my shirt off, and she wrote me up for it. I got a reprimand.
Okay, all right. You do have law enforcement opposition to your parole. Just want to state that for the record. There's nothing you can do about it. Just stating it for the record. Probation parole inquired as to the victims, and all of your victims are deceased as of the time that they were reaching out. And they didn't find any family members of the victims to give us some input today, so we don't have anything to hear from the victims. So tell me why I should vote to let you out today.
Well, ma'am, in 2017, when you granted me parole, unbeknown to myself or to y'all, I was granted a condition of parole based on the approval of my housing plan. And that plan was approved. And I got out and there was no house. I didn't know this. I received this information from the administration at the institution. So I found myself in homeless. I was literally living in a tent. I was gainfully employed. I was living in a tent. I had a great parole officer who did everything he could to help me, but the resources weren't there. Again, I ended up having a double aneurysm. I went in the hospital and I violated the conditions of my parole. The difference now, as opposed to then, is I have an opportunity to succeed. I have an expectation of success. I have an expectation of greatness of myself. I have 72 plus. I have Vote New Orleans. I have the wraparound program. I have Ms. Bronson, my brother. I have a true reentry program that we have diligently built, custom built for me, my needs, so that I can excel, so that I can not only be an asset to society, but a pillar of the community. And everyone that knows me knows that I'm capable of it.
All right. All right, well said. You thought about that. Even with the lack of resources and so forth and so on, how do you factor in leaving the state and going to Florida?
Well, this is the way, the honest truth in that answer is, I had just got out of the hospital that day.
Who was in Florida? Tell us who you're going with in Florida.
Okay, the thing is, I had just got out of the hospital that day. And
Now answer my question. Who were you going to see in Florida?
I wasn't going to see anyone, ma'am. A man offered me a job. I'm a highly skilled lawn manicurist. He had a resort that he had got a contract to do in Florida.
Okay.
Could come with me and help me with this job. And I jumped in the truck and I didn't think about parole. I didn't think about anything. I was sitting on a curb in the rain, crying out to God. And this man pulled up and said, "Man, what's wrong with you?" And I helped you. Tell you what, get in the truck. I got some work. Jumped in the truck, and about 3 days later, I realized I tripped out, and I called Mr. Cox and said, "Mr. Cox, I've made a mistake." He said, "What's going on, Shawn? I'm glad you're out of the hospital. I haven't heard from you." "Sir, I've left the state of Louisiana." He said,
Okay. All right, that answers my question. When did you find out you was gonna have a hearing?
I found out the day after my first status conference through a rap sheet. That would have been in August.
You found out in August of this year that you was gonna have a hearing?
Yes, ma'am.
August of 23?
Yes, ma'am. August the 9th, I believe it was.
Okay. August the 9th of 23 is when you found out you had a hearing. So you had to start kind of leaving them write-ups alone and start trying to, you know.
Well, if you notice, I had already had a year in without a
Well,
write-up.
a month. No, well, I guess you're right. You're right. You did have a little while. So I see you as father of one child. Tell me about that.
I don't have
one child. Huh?
I have no children.
Oh, okay. I thought I saw that. I got that in my notes now. I was in error. Have you filed any administrative remedies in DOC for your predicament? ARP?
Yes, ma'am. I currently have litigation pending in the 19th.
Okay.
Concerning the revocation here.
Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I appreciate you answering my questions. Warren, what can you tell us about Mr. Shawn?
Shawn, he's only been here since February. He hasn't been any issues, of course, since he's been here. He's recently made strides. He's one of our inmate counsels, so he does a good job in there. But one of the things I would recommend, though, is that he did take the victim impact and the living imbalance based on his 14s that he's had in his past and his, admittance about the substance abuse in the family.
Yes, sir, we can't hardly hear you either. I heard you said victim impact and living in balance. You recommend
living in balance based on, the 14s in his jacket and his admittance to, basically the family history. plus, for mental health and that, documentation. I would
Yes, sir.
recommend those classes.
You recommend living in balance and victim impact?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. We want to be sure because that volume is just not,
I don't know what's wrong with the mic.
Yeah, it's not like this. Yeah,
Thank you.
that's all I had, Chairman.
Now we hear from your supporters. We'll hear from Mr. Tyrone Smith of First 72.
Yes, sir.
Good morning still.
Yes, yes.
Okay, yeah. I'm represent on behalf of Shawn. And just like Shawn had said that he have a real re-entry program to come to when he get out this time. And we have a bed and a Bible ready for him. We have program called the 9 Steps to Staying Free that we can offer him that deal with thinking for change, toxic relationships, and a whole bunch of programs that they have inside the prison. And so upon his release, he'll be assigned to a coach. Somebody's going to take him by the hand and show him the way. This is what our program is all about. It's about formerly incarcerated men helping formerly incarcerated people that comes out of prison. So I think if Mr. Shawn is granted the opportunity, this time he'll have all of the help that he needs with all the wraparound services that we provide for him also, that he'll make a huge impact into our society and community. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you very much. Now we'll hear from your friend, Anthony Hingle Jr. Mr. Hingle.
Good afternoon, board, and to everyone. Anthony Hingle Jr., formerly incarcerated. I spent 32 years up there in Angola. And Shawn was a person that, he was one of the person that you would always see like in the positive circles. I mean, whether it was classes, programs, treatments, trainings, it was always something positive that you would see him in a facility with. And, through the years, I used to always see Shawn. I just saw him as a person that was about the right thing. But it wasn't until he started working at the hospital, at the infirmary with me, where I actually met him personally and we had became friends working there together. And working at the hospital on the wards with a lot of sick and ill and people that's, on their dying beds, that type of work wasn't for everybody, but when I saw him come through that door as one of the new workers there, it was kind of like, I knew he was going to be a good fit because I knew he was a positive person. But I actually got blown away after I started working with him, maybe not even the first week, just seeing how he just took to the work. And I think the reason why he took to the work was because of his heart. You had to have the right heart for that type of work. He had a good heart and he was a compassionate person. And it was days where that type of work on one ward would require maybe 4 to 6 incarcerated individuals taking care of that ward. But it was days when just me and Shawn was there and we was able to handle it because it was in him to do that type of work. And I mean, it was, the patients falling in love with him because of the heart he had, the nurses, the security. It was almost like Stepp had became a head or a healthcare provider within weeks of working there. And we had became good friends. We had real bonded there. Working with people that was in their last days of living. So it was kind of like, you had to really work together and really muster some stuff, seeing and watching and witnessing, those type of things. But Shawn is a good person. He's a real good person through and through, inside and out. What you see is what you get with him. And, he's gonna do great, coming home to a support system. He has VOTE, and I work at VOTE Varsity Experience. We're also staffed by mostly formerly incarcerated people, where we help formerly incarcerated men and women when they come home with resources. And First 72 Plus, they're really gonna back for him and really help him out to a great degree. Housing, work, treatment. So he's gonna be real good this time around with that support, coming on to that support system. And I appreciate the board really, considering releasing them to first 72 plus and to vote. I thank y'all
you,
for the
Mr.
time.
Hingle. We appreciate your comments. We'll now hear from your brother, Mr. Scotty Hendricks. You're on mute, Mr. Hendricks.
All right. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay, all right, thank you. Yeah, I'm Sean's brother. I'm the only sibling of the bunch that's left. Sean we all come from a pretty abusive home. And Sean, being the oldest, got the rep of it, and it was quite frequent. But Sean's very loving and was very loving to me, and I loved him. And heart of gold, he didn't have the love from his parents that that he needed. And but I love him, and I want to be there for him. I'm going to be there for him, financially and morally and lovingly, everything that I can do for him. Had I known he'd been up for parole before, I'd have been there at that time too. But unfortunately, I wasn't aware of it. And but now I am, and I would love to see him released and continue the life that I know that he's going to live, not a danger to society or anything like that, and prosper himself and do the right things,
Thank you very much, Mr. Hendricks. We appreciate your comments. We also have documents of support from the people that are here. Ms. Carolyn Durham writes that Mr. Stepp's rehabilitation is clear from his successes and community of resources that await to support him. Josie Natowitz states that Shawn is brilliant and intelligent, experienced in so many fields, and we are so excited to have Shawn on this team as Solitary Gardens. Ms. Hannah Grodell states that Rise Collective are a community committed to supporting Shawn in his successful reentry, and we are here today to ask that you please grant him release or parole. Thank you. Finally, Anisha Shelty, I'm sorry, I can't read the writing. Shawn was incarcerated as a youth and has spent his time decades investing in improving himself. If released, Shawn will have support to transition back into society from family, friends, and advocacy groups that are involved in his success. So thank you for your support. Mr. Stepp, is there anything that you'd like to say to the board before we turn it over to Ms. Bronson?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that first and foremost, I apologize that I did fail the first time, that I didn't live this in my parole. I feel like that I was inadvertently set up to fail. And I know that many men, many people ask y'all to give them a chance. I'm asking that you give me the opportunity to succeed. I have everything in place to succeed. I am a God-loving, God-fearing, self-made man. And given the proper tools, I don't lose. And I have the proper tools. When you set me on the street and you put me in a tent, I was set up to fail, and it isn't you, and I don't want you to feel like I'm saying it's your fault or I'm not blaming anybody but me, because ultimately I'm the one that got in that truck. And that set off this chain reaction of events that brought me back before you. But now I have everything in place. Give me a shot, man, please. And I thank you for considering me.
Thank you, Mr. Stepp. Ms. Bronson?
Good morning, board. Again, pleasure to be before you. Sorry I couldn't be there in person as I usually like to do, but it's always a pleasure. I am Shawn Stepp came to me for representation through the Tulane Law Clinic. He has an immense amount of connection to people doing legal work as an inmate counsel, and they could not take his case, and they reached out to me to take it pro bono based on his own efforts, to know that he has that he needed to build a support network because of learning from what happened last time. He took the initiative to hire myself pro bono to take his case. And from the weeks that I've been working with him, it has been immensely clear in my professional judgment and personal judgment living in New Orleans that this is a prime example of a case of a man who has been incarcerated for 35 years now. He has spent his entire life incarcerated. He has Mr. Hendricks, who has recently reconnected with him, but the rest of his family is deceased. And it's a case where you, as an attorney, have to look at the success of somebody coming home. And if you are fighting for somebody and advocating, that you have to also set that up for them. And through my connections in New Orleans, the personal work that I do here as an attorney, we have secured all of the necessary reentry programs for him. First 72 is transitional housing, and the life coaches are also people who have been incarcerated. There is substance abuse treatment, there's support groups, as well as there's formerly incarcerated support groups at Vote NOLA and Rise Collective. So he is automatically coming into a space where he has all of the things that will make him successful. Mr. Shawn has, as the board has seen, has gone through a complicated parole the first time around in 2017, and I think we can all agree that there's some procedural issues and some things that are unclear. However, before you today is a man that has a GED, has multiple certificates. He has a ton of trades, as well as has volunteered throughout his incarceration, including in hospice, as well as doing landscaping and groundskeeping for the institutions, and has secured part-time employment upon release with Solitary Gardens, which is also in New Orleans and also works with people coming home. So he has a network of support. And then he also, through all of his skills, I am committed to helping him get long-term employment and long-term housing as somebody in New Orleans, based on what I have seen and the potential that he has, if having the right resources set up, that all of that can be successful, including any substance abuse and being in counseling, which I have enrolled my clients in upon their release at CADA, which is here in New Orleans, as well as Leaders EDU LLC, which is another substance abuse program as well, to support people coming home. So I asked this board to look at, when we're talking about the totality of the circumstances in Mr. Shawn's case, the amount of time that he has been incarcerated, and when he has come back this time, those disciplinary write-ups, I understand, are a concern, and he has fully understood that coming back after not even 6 months of being out, after 30 years wasn't an understanding from him of the bad and poor decision making that he had upon release. But I feel confident as his attorney, as a citizen of New Orleans, as somebody involved in reentry in New Orleans, that he would be successful this time with all of the conditions that you see necessary to be on parole in New Orleans. And I'm committed to supporting him along with the other individuals that you heard from today. So I ask you that you grant his parole to the first 72 plus, and I will personally see to it that he is successful this time as well. So thank you all for your time, as always.
Thank you. Panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Okay.
Move in executive session.
Okay.
I second.
Mayor Bill?
Yes.
Steve Burdick?
Yes.
Parole.
Yes.
There's been a request, a motion and a second for executive session. The time is 11:59. We're going to go into executive session to discuss matters of a confidential nature. We'll recess this hearing momentarily. We will return as soon as we're done with our executive session. The Committee on Parole is called back to order from executive session. The time is 12:03. The panel ready to vote?
Yes.
Ms. Wise?
Mrs. Smith of Steps,
Yes, ma'am.
Shawn, Mr. Shawn. Mr. Shawn. Common sense, let's just speak common sense. If I had 80 years over my head and somebody asked me to ride across town, I'll do an assessment. If this safe for me to ride across town? Because I got 80 years on my head. If I wasn't sure, I'd stay where I'm at. I don't hear that mindset from you. You got DOC time that you're backing up. That's what you got to think about. How can I stay free? I got free. How can I stay free? If that, you had some hard conditions, but you were free. And you asking us to free you today again. But when you were out and you had options, you didn't act like you wanted your freedom. That's concerning for me as a retired probation parole officer. Yes, you made the call, but you made the call after you messed up. That's concerning for me. But I do realize that your brother's in your life. You got some, the lawyer was successful in getting you a community of people that you didn't have before. That's encouraging to me. That's what's tipping me. And you meet the minimum, the bare minimum that you haven't had to write up in the last year. That's what we ask. That's our policy. You're consistent with our policy, and you are in a stride program. You've done well. So I'm inclined to take a chance on you. My vote is to grant after you complete a long-term substance abuse program. You sit on the front row and let them tell you, because you tend to want to tell folks. You listen. Because you don't know. You were not successful on the streets. It's not about getting out. It's about staying out. And let that be your focus. Now, can I stay out? I want you to complete that long-term substance abuse program. Where does your brother live?
He lives in Monroe.
He lives in Monroe. After you complete the residence program and go through the 72 program, I want you to reside with your brother.
He's looking right. He's shaking his head. Okay.
Is that okay? Reside with your brother until you get permission from your probation officer to change your residence.
Yes, ma'am.
That is my vote. And also when you complete the treatment program, they're gonna have some recommendations. You follow those recommendations. You need to remember that you don't know. Let other people tell you because you didn't do it good. You need to listen to other people. I'm not sure you're getting that, but I'm willing to take a chance on you, and that's what I'm doing. I'm only one vote. That's my vote.
Thank you, Ms. Wise. Mr. Freeman?
Okay, Shawn, I look at this and your problem is drugs, period. I mean, your problem is drugs.
Yes, sir.
Was that a real positive at the work release or was it a false positive?
Sir, I was operating heavy equipment. It was a false positive. I was taking the Proxen, sir. Showed a positive. That's proof. I'm not going to dispute that I have used drugs in my life. I will not deny that to this board. That was not I took a urinalysis every week. I was operating heavy equipment in.
They didn't give you 2 tests. They gave you just 1, and then that was it.
The standard test showed that I was positive.
I got a hang up. I ain't gonna lie. You lawyer opened this thing by saying that West Baton Rouge was a fictitious or something work release, and that is one of the best work release in this state.
No, sir.
They get you good jobs that pay well.
If I may, sir, but we were not talking about work release. We were talking about a place called Second Chance or something like that.
Okay. All right. Okay. Don't hit me where it hurts. All right. Well, I'm gonna go along with Ms. Watts. I really think that drugs are your problem. Drugs are everywhere out there. They're gonna be at the first 72 just like they everywhere else. It's just hard to keep them out. I mean, you need 24-hour-a-day security with a dog. So Go over there, listen like she said, and you got to learn how to, when the pressure hits you, not to go back to drugs.
Yes, sir.
Get you a good support system when you get out of that first 72. Get you a sponsor, go to AA 3 nights a week. And my vote's to grant with those conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Mr. Stepp, I agree with my colleagues. My vote with what they have said. My vote would be the same, conditional grant that you go to a long-term treatment facility at DOC, namely Steve Porter. Once you finish that program, you would follow all of their recommendations. Then you are to do at least 3 AA meetings per week. Let me make sure I've got all my notes here. You will reside, you'll go through the 72 plus their program. And once you finish that program, you will reside with your brother in Monroe. And I think he's gone now, but I saw him shake his head and say that was okay earlier. So, okay. We didn't want to force something on him that he didn't want to take, but it looks like he's agreed to that. And not to leave his residence unless you have permission from your parole officer. So you've been granted conditionally. Good luck to you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Excuse me, really quickly, board, just to make sure that I'm clear. So the recommendation, is it to go to the Steve Hall program or to take like a substance abuse program at Raymond LaBorde?
Steve Hall.
No, Steve Hoyle. Steve
Okay.
Hall. Yes.
And we'll get
Thank
him.
you. Okay, thank you.